by the blood of our people are your lands kept safe.
I see in your eyes the same fear that will take the heart of me.
So do all who live to see such times.
By all that you hold dear, this good earth.
There's some good in this world, and it's worth fighting.
Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Season 1, Episode 8, Alloyed. Hello everyone, and welcome. We are the Fellowship of the Two Kings. On this channel, we love talking about Lord of the Rings, particularly through the visual medium. We touch on other forms of fantasy and even dabble in sci-fi, so if you love deep discussions about great works of fiction, please click on that subscribe button. Okay, so we jump right back into the Meteor Man, and this is actually an interesting scene because it's a scene that comes before we actually get to the intro panel for the Rings of Power. So we get him kind of just doesn't look like it's a pleasant journey with him just kind of marching through the rain here, kind of trying to find some shelter, all the while thinking about Nori and the Harfoots.
Yeah, I'll point out he's in Gil-galad, the Greenwood, and the Greenwood becomes Mirkwood later. So that's where just some geographical context.
Nice.
And they're doing the apple being colorful and the rest of the world being gray thing again.
Yeah. I guess other than just, like you said, pointing out that geographical significance, I don't know what else. Like, it's kind of odd that this comes before the actual introduction of the show. I guess we do get the cultists appearing in a very odd way. They have realized that they believe Sauron has kind of befriended these Harfoots, and so they think the best way to approach him is to shapeshift into Harfoots.
Right. Well, I gotta tell you, that set off Sauron alarms in my head, because we know Sauron's a brilliant illusionist and shapeshifter. So I was like, oh, maybe this cultist is Sauron. But no, we find out very quickly that they're not Sauron.
Well, so that's the thing. We always people were thinking this was Sauron just from the image alone back when posters were being released. And that seemed too obvious. And then we find out that it's some cultist leader who's trying to track down Sauron. But the thing is, the abilities that these guys have, they're pretty powerful. And so it is interesting that they themselves don't just try to be Sauron. Like instead of just doing what they think Sauron should be doing, they are here trying to find Sauron. It's an odd thing for villains in this world in particular to try to find a different villain.
So he drops the apple. It kind of rolls away, and it gets picked up by what appears to be Nori. It's actually just the cultist disguised as Nori.
And Nori being very weird. Like you know right away something's wrong.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other two appear, and I know their names now. I wrote them down.
Okay.
There's here. Sorry for the dead air.
All good.
It's the three thes. The dweller, that's the main one. The dweller, the ascetic, and the nomad.
Oh, okay.
So the main one's the main one they keep showing is the dweller. The one that talks more and is like your powers are gonna come back. That's the ascetic. And the one throwing knives, that's the nomad.
And I guess they all have different powers. That's sort of what I gathered from the knife throwing versus the fire breathing. Yeah.
But anyway, the other two cultists appear, and they believe him to be Sauron, and they say they've come to serve him. They all kneel.
Yeah.
Is that when we get the intro now, or do we go to Aragion and?
We do, yeah. So that's when we get the intro.
Okay.
And like I said, the weird thing is, if this had come out of nowhere, having this scene take place before the intro kind of works for me, but just we already knew that these people were chasing Meteor Man and thinking he was Sauron. So the scene, I mean, unless you just weren't paying attention, the scene doesn't really do anything other than establish what we already knew from last episode. So yeah, I just found it odd that it came before and it didn't actually give us much like additional information.
Well, it would be interesting if these were like cultists dedicated to like a blue wizard or something.
Yeah, if we were totally off on them thinking, yeah, you're right. If that had been the twist where they're kind of weird and evil, it may be, but they're not even looking for Sauron. They're looking for Blue Wizard or any of the Istari. I think that would be interesting. But instead, it's just, once again, reinforcing. Like, basically, if you hadn't watched the previous episodes and you're just tuning in to the end, it kind of, brings you up to speed. These are cultists looking for Sauron.
I mean, it would. Do you know? I mean, I'm getting off topic, but if it was Saruman, that'd be interesting too. And he's a good guy, so this would be like Saruman before he's corrupted. And
yeah,
he's actually, like,
and it would
guy.
kind of, almost hint at the corruption to come.
Yeah.
The fact that they thought he was Sauron and he's actually Saruman, and then their names are so similar. But anyway, I kind of like that idea. But again, that would also wreck lore. So, it's hard to fix any of this stuff.
The blue wizard doesn't necessarily wreck lore.
True.
So that's what we were kind of hoping.
That's what we were all sort of.
And heading to the east jives with him being a blue wizard.
Well, exactly. And so the fact that like this guy's actually going to continue to head east, it hasn't been established that. I mean, I guess we'll get to there in a later scene, but I think there's still some safety nets for everyone in regards to what's going on with Meteor Man. But yeah, after the intro, we get right back to Galadriel and Halbrand.
Yeah, riding towards it's Aragion.
Yeah.
And we see Halbrand keeled forward on his horse, sort of like a dying Frodo.
Yeah.
He's probably had a rough ride. Then we see Elrond and Celebrimbor. And Celebrimbor wonders if there's a way of doing more with less.
Yeah.
And said that the sun started with something very small. Elrond, on the other hand, believes that they have failed and they must prepare for all elves to leave Middle Earth.
Yeah, and so this is where I was basically like, okay, take note. These guys, everyone's going to be jumping around in terms of having confidence that they might be able to pull off some miracle versus accepting their failure. And it goes all over the place. So in this scene, Elrond, despite Celebrimbor saying Celebrimbor looks like he's coming up with something in his head, and Elrond's like, nope, we failed. We gotta go tell Gil-galad we're done. And it's just such an unusual stance for Elrond to take. He's always been so optimistic. So it really struck me as an odd thing, and then we're gonna see some switcheroos pulled here.
I mean, it is odd. I thought they would go to war with the dwarves. That made a lot more sense to me.
Yeah, that's the thing, and you and I were talking about this. Okay, the dwarves aren't going to give you any more mithril.
I mean, yeah, I'd have to think the elves would have the means to take Khazad-dûm.
Even if they don't, you'd try.
Yeah.
Some of them would. But then, I mean, Elrond wouldn't try. But, that's the thing, is it doesn't make sense. If you honestly believed that this was your downfall, if you didn't get enough of this stuff, you would at least explore the possibility of taking it by force.
Yeah, or at least if you amass a large enough army, you can scare the dwarves into saying, "Look, we just want the mithril. If you don't hand it over, we're coming." Maybe that would give them that would bully them.
Yeah, you're right. You would at least try something. It seems like they haven't tried anything here, and we don't even know because what we saw last time we were with the dwarves is there is internal struggle there, and I thought there was going to be some
Right. The other dwarf lords were supportive of giving the mithril. It's just the king
Yeah.
who doesn't want to do that. So
Yeah,
you could
and
have
so I thought there was actually going to be a moment, like, I mean, we kind of saw it last episode, but where Durin the Fourth overrules his own father, or at least has like a bit of a conspiracy to usurp the throne, like something. But it seems like the elves just left it and decided, all right, this little piece of mithril is all we have to save everyone.
yeah, that's all they have. But anyway, Galadriel and Halbrand enter, and yeah, there's a reunion between Elrond and Galadriel, and yeah, Elrond asks what has happened, and she said that Halbrand was hit by a lance 6 days ago, and they've been riding without rest since she found him.
Yeah.
And the elves go to heal Halbrand while Galadriel and Elrond I just said discuss the events of season 1.
Yeah, so I mean, so here's the thing, you and I talked about this before, but like this idea that Halbrand needed elvish medicine doesn't make sense. And it's really starting to bug me. Like, why is he here? He got stabbed by a lance, so did a lot of people. And yet he needs elvish medicine and everyone else is just left to die. Now maybe we can chalk it up to he's the king of the Southlands. But they rode all the way just for a lance wound. Like, why not have it be more mystical than that? Like the way Frodo needs elvish medicine. It just seems weird that it's such a normal injury.
Yeah, it feels like a normal injury.
Yeah, like I don't know why.
It feels like either unless it was some magic lance, like a Morgul blade type thing. But if you're healthy enough to survive a 6-day ride, I don't see why you wouldn't survive with human doctor.
Yeah, now I will at least say good on them for having him keel over this time, because when he steps out of that tent and everyone's cheering for the king of the Southlands, he just like marches up to it. I mean, yeah, he's got a bit of a limp, but like he seems fine. Like I was like, he's not hurt. Frodo was hurt. This guy is fine. So at least now he's showing that he's injured by barely being able to stay on his horse. And in fact, when he gets off the horse, he gets like dragged away by the elves. So it's not even like he can stand on his own anymore.
Yeah. And then later, Halbrand comes to Celebrimbor's workshop asking for Galadriel.
Yeah. This is where everything gets really weird.
Celebrimbor is speaking in the third person, of course, but he informs Galadriel's not here, and that this used to be Celebrimbor's workshop. And yeah, Halbrand knows all about Celebrimbor and is excited to meet him. And Celebrimbor, who's been speaking himself in the third person, reveals that he is Celebrimbor.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, actually, real quick, I just remembered something. There's a scene in which Elrond says he's sorry for like putting Galadriel on that ship, and I'm like, that's such an odd thing to apologize for, because that's not what happened. But anyway, so again, it kind of confuses what actually is going to Valinor for the elves, and it kind of gets to our whole idea of like, is it actually death? But anyway.
Galadriel thought she didn't deserve it.
So that's her claim, is that she felt she didn't deserve it. Now, whether or not that's true or not, I believe her. She has definitely some issues going on. But the fact that Elrond is glad she didn't get the honor of going to Valinor, all I'm trying to say is that from a casual person's perspective, that's going to definitely be confusing. And to someone that knows a little bit, it's confusing. And that's okay, it can be. We just have to acknowledge that, because there's a constant like mixed messaging from the elves of if it's a punishment, or if it's like death, or if it's like actually an honor. Because like her brother died and didn't get to go to Valinor. So there is death without Valinor. And so,
That's true.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, you got this really weird scene with Celebrimbor and Halbrand. And I thought it was weird that Halbrand knew about Celebrimbor. Now, maybe the humans and other species know about. Yeah, maybe they have heard about it. But Halbrand seems a little too excited to be in this workshop.
So Halbrand asks about these 3 jewels on the table, and Celebrimbor says that they're meant to embody Middle Earth the way the Silmarils embodied Valinor.
Mm-hmm.
And then Halbrand picks up the Mithril and asks, "What is this?" And Celebrimbor just says, "It's not enough."
I know. So, okay, I don't know. I think I probably got to just say this off the top here. The writing came back down in this episode for me. So it had actually been getting better as the show went on, and then this episode it seems to revert back to some of these weird writing tropes that they do, where like this doesn't make sense. What is this? Not enough? That's so awkward.
Well, he doesn't want to give a direct answer because he doesn't know who this guy is.
Fair enough, but the answer that it's not enough is almost giving too much information. Then, like, it's such a weird. Like, just say it's nothing. It's just a hunk of rock I've been playing. Like,
Yeah.
So, but this is not the only example. There's going to be some other examples, but this is one of the first ones, and I guess I just want to get it out of the way that I do think the writing comes down in this episode, and I don't want to try to focus on it the entire time we're talking. I just, in case there's another scene where like I think there's something bad, I'll just probably skip it or just maybe say this is another one and move on, because I don't want to bog down when we've got other stuff to get into with this episode.
Yeah, Halbrand suggests stretching it out as an alloy.
Yeah, this is another problem I have.
Celebrimbor says it would dilute its unique qualities, and then Halbrand suggests that the right alloy could amplify the qualities. And Celebrimbor thinks this is an interesting suggestion.
Yeah, this. So I already talked about bad dialogue. This is straight up bad story. So this doesn't make sense. Celebrimbor is the best, right? He's the best. And Halbrand, well, now that we know who Halbrand is, sure, he might have some knowledge, but this is such an easy answer. And this is the problem, is as I'm watching this, the answers they're getting and agreeing that, oh, this is brilliant, they're nothing answers. Like, I'm shocked that you haven't already thought of this. Like all these other issues, like, I don't know how long it's been, but presumably a couple weeks, because Galadriel was riding from the Southlands all the way up here. I would have assumed that with that one piece of mithril, they would have thought of all these ideas already and had tried them. But it seems like they've tried nothing but I don't know, smashing it into I don't know, like into a crown. I don't know what the heck their plan was. But it seems like they had zero plan. And yet Celebrimbor in the scene before had a plan. He's like, oh, I have an idea. We just need to make this into the sun or something like that. And it's just, they don't, if you're going to set up problems like this, the answer can't just be, just, mix it with this right beside you. Like, as if it's been sitting there the whole time. There needs to be a bit more, I don't know. There needs to be a bit more energy there from that's why they didn't think of it, because that's never been done before, or they don't have any of any gold from Valinor, so they can't do it. And then Galadriel, like, you know what I mean? Like, if they had a problem that was solved by Galadriel and Halbrand showing up, or by maybe the dwarves coming back, like the fact that this solution was just be a smarter smith. It kind of wrecks Celebrimbor for me a little bit.
Well, I don't know how much time he had to think of it. I think he was really gambling on Elrond getting more mithril. But you're right, maybe they should have been thinking about this long in advance, because we don't know how long it took. It has been 6 days, but we don't know how long it takes, because we're under the impression that Aragion and Khazad-dûm are like a 5-minute walk down the block.
Yeah, true.
Maybe Elrond was also walking for 3 or 4 days.
Oh, right.
And it's only actually been a couple days, and they've just been kind of brooding over their failure. They haven't had time to really get it together. But anyway, we're back in Numenor. The king is dying, and Pharazôn is there, and he wants to build a statue of him. And he kind of speaks about mortality of man a bit. At least he very tangentially talks about the mortality of man. So that hints at what he wants. This is all the Numenorians want immortality. That's kind of, or there's a faction of them that do, and that's why they hate the elves. It's a kind of jealousy. And he ends up turning it into a school assignment for Aerion to create a likeness of him.
So I thought the idea, now maybe this is just wrong, but you know how like there's some cultures that would have like a death mask? That's sort of what I thought that they were doing, but then when I see her just kind of like sketching in her book, I'm like, oh, maybe it was just to make a sketch. Like I thought it was actually to like make a statue or a mask to preserve his likeness in stone, but I was incorrect about that one.
So we have the king ends up so we see Aerion sketching the king, and the king confuses Aerion for Muriel, and issues a warning that they need to return to the old ways, and then he ends up taking her to the Palantir. And he talks about how he's gone a little nuts looking into it for too long. That's kind of what he says too. So he needs don't look at it for too long. He kind of warns her not to look too long. Yeah, now I'm confused. Does no one else know about the Palantir? Like, does Pharazôn not know about it, or does like Muriel and Galadriel for sure do, and I guess Aerion does now, but I don't know about Pharazôn.
So maybe nobody else knows about it, because I would have assumed Pharazôn would be all up on that Palantir, like just using it nonstop at this point if he knew about it. That seems to be like the thing that happens when people get a hold of these objects. Is like they just can't help themselves.
Okay, we're back in Eregion, and Gil-galad has arrived, and Celebrimbor, based on Halbrand's ideas, suggests creating a crown of mithril to amplify its powers, which Gil-galad could wear. Gil-galad says it's too late, they need to leave the shores of Middle-earth. And then Celebrimbor goes on this quote saying, "We are on the cusp of crafting a new kind of power, not of strength but of spirit, not of the flesh but over flesh." This is a power of the unseen world. And I said, well, that Galadriel realizes that this sounds very Sauron-y. This is what Adar said to her. That's what Adar said that Sauron was trying to do in the north.
Yeah.
So she's wondering, what? Maybe Celebrimbor Sauron? I don't know what's going on here.
And he's got to look. Now, people know how I feel about this actor, but there's a look in this guy's eye where you're like, did somebody tell him that he's maybe Sauron? He's got this like evil smirk to him. Like, wait a minute. What a plot twist. But no, he's just been listening to Halbrand, the human smith, a little too long.
Right. Well, Gil-galad even says you got this idea from the low man. And kind of condescending, but he's right. Why would a common man know anything about this?
Yeah, literally, think about what they're talking about. They're talking about harnessing the star light that keeps elves immortal, putting it into a crown to have the elven king wear to amplify the light to then touch all the elves, which then keeps them immortal. Like, is that right? Am I getting the gist of this plan? Like, it's so magical and high fantasy that a low human smith should have no comprehension about what we're doing.
Right, and this is a bit of an aside in it. This is not my idea. I just saw it in an audience member watching Nerdrotic. An audience member chimed in saying, okay, so if just like putting mithril in a ring creates this kind of power, I mean, think about Bilbo and Frodo's chain link shirt of mithril. That's what rings
no, but see, okay.
He's just walking around some super
No.
super species with a mithril shard.
No, okay. So to solve that one, so the idea would be that they needed to forge it with gold and silver from Valinor, and that's when they use Galadriel's dagger later on. So I think it makes sense that regular mithril isn't magical like that, like it is like here. But even still, you're kind of right. Could you take Frodo's mithril chain link shirt and make it into like, I don't know, 10 powerful ring? You know what I mean? Like, could you just take some gold from Valinor and make like immense powerful rings out of this? It kind of messes with like what we thought mithril was all about. I assumed there was more magic involved, but it seems to be a lot more just about the elements.
Yeah. So yeah, but anyway, Galadriel hears that and she's very suspicious.
Yeah.
And she asks where he. Yeah, she asks where he heard those words. And Celebrimbor says, well, he was consulting his smith, and he looks dazed. He looks dazed.
He
He's
looks.
really ignoring the
He does.
See, he says he was consulting his smith, and he thinks of his own words, and he says, well, what does it matter anyway? And then he just walks off.
Yeah, and like I'm like, wait, you thought you came up with that? So you've been stealing people's ideas like this whole, like, this guy's a fraud. Am I right? Like, Celebrimbor is a fraud, straight up fraud.
He's the Gilderoy Lockhart.
I was just thinking that.
Kind of looks like Gilderoy.
Kind of does. In fact, they should make him like the villain in season 2.
You find out he's been stealing everyone's ideas and just putting memory charms on them.
Yeah. Little memory charm rings. Here, wear this. It's a token of my appreciation. Oh, what did I? But we'll come to that in a couple years when we get there. For now, we've got to figure out what the heck is going on. So.
Oh, and I should say, Gil-galad ended up commanding Celebrimbor to disband the city and return to Lindon.
Yeah. So.
I'm not gonna try.
So remember what I said. So Elrond told Celebrimbor that it's time to give up. And then Halbrand shows up, tells Celebrimbor some secrets to forging magic rings. Celebrimbor takes that to Gil-galad. Gil-galad says, no, I don't like that idea. We're giving up. And then Elrond is the one who comes back to him and says, no, we can't give up. And then he gives him a taste of his own medicine. But this is my issue, is that without much prompting, Elrond has switched his view. And I just wish we had more time to see him come to those realizations without having them be just big speech moments like this. So, like, he tells Celebrimbor, give up. Then Galadriel shows up and he kind of talks to her a little bit. Now, maybe during that talk, he does kind of start changing his mind and saying, no, we can fight for this. But we just don't get enough of that. So that when this comes around, you're like, well, why is it Elrond doing this big speech? It just kind of comes out of nowhere. When Celebrimbor already gave a pretty good explanation of what they should do, and the king didn't like it. So, coming here and saying, even though we don't have a lot of hope, we have a little bit of hope, and that's enough. That changes the king's mind.
Yeah. Elrond asks for 3 months, and Gil-galad agrees with Elrond. Says he gives him the chance to do it, and then we see Halbrand and Celebrimbor working together, and they look like they're getting along.
I can't believe they let a human smith touch this stuff.
It's very Sauron-y, because we know this is what happens, right? Sauron and Celebrimbor become friends, and they make the rings. Then Galadriel approaches, like, I just said elf librarian. If they have,
It reminds me of the scene in Star Wars, what is it, episode 2, when they're looking for the Calaminos?
the Camino.
Yeah, the Caminos. And they're like, oh, there is no such star in this system or something like that. I'm like, oh, this is kind of...
And yeah, and she tells the librarian to keep this quiet for her. then Halbrand approaches, and he thanks Galadriel for saving his life, and he says he's a big fan of he's a big fan of Celebrimbor.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we're back to the cultists. So the aesthetic, that's one of the cultists. She tells Meteor Man that his memory will come back as he regains power, and they say that they come from a land where the stars they come from the land where the stars he's been looking for is, and it is identified as Rune finally, and they call that star formation the Hermit's Hat. And
I always thought it was actually more like an F or something like that. Like I thought it was more sideways, but I guess I've been looking at it wrong.
Yeah. And then Meteor Man seems agitated, so the Dweller puts him to sleep. That's the main one.
Yeah, this
and,
scene.
and then we find Sadik and I said the Fellowship of the Harfoots have caught up, and they're in ghillie suits, like very secret, like very covert ops, almost. It seems very military, special ops stuff.
Well, so the one thing though is like, so Meteor Man has this star symbol that he's fixated on, and these cultists.
Just answered his question for him, yeah.
Yeah, but like, so why is he fixated on these stars if these stars somehow relate to Sauron? Like, why was this such a big? Why was this in his mind? Unless like the explanation is like he was sent down to kind of save the world from Sauron or something, and in the sending him down, his mind kind of got scrambled, but he only remembered these stars. Like it just kind of, I don't know. It's weird that he had these stars, and that these cultists were like, "Oh, that means you're Sauron," and then that ultimately it means nothing. Like, am I missing something? Like, what's with these stars?
I don't think we know yet. That's why they're going to continue there, and we'll find out.
Oh, I thought we were done with Meteor Man after this.
No.
I thought it was a complete red herring, like just trying to be like, oh, you thought this was Sauron, you idiots, and then just like he's not even in the rest of the show.
Literally, you're the only person who thought he was Sauron. of the millions of viewers. I'm kidding.
I was hoping he was Sauron. I really wanted Waldrick to be Sauron.
Yeah, well, I've thought about Waldrick a bit. I mean, this is more close to the end, but I do want, because Waldrick's very devoted to Sauron. Maybe Waldrick plays a role in helping Halbrand / Sauron.
Yeah, maybe he becomes like
Adar.
Yeah, maybe he becomes like a secondhand.
Yeah, you become the mouth of Sauron, even though that's also lore breaking. But
at this point, who cares that we're gonna do it? That's what the writers' room is like. Hey, isn't that lore breaking? Oh, please, we got Harfoots running around. This is lore breaking. Who cares at this point?
And I think it's Marigold. She draws the cultist away with a bird call of an owl,
Mm-hmm.
and then Sadik and Nori approach Meteor Man, who's been tied up to free him.
Yeah.
And Meteor Man's surprised, and he makes a noise, and the cultists return. And Sadik is hit by a throwing knife.
Well, so wait, Meteor Man. That's not really Meteor Man.
Right. This comes very shortly.
Yeah.
We don't know he's not Meteor Man yet.
Right.
He gets hit by the knife thrown by the Nomad, and then we find out Meteor Man was the Dweller in disguise. And then the real Meteor Man returns to save Nori.
Yeah.
But the Dweller is very powerful, and he appears to be more than a match for Meteor Man. Poppy and Nori try to escape, but knives thrown by the Nomad pin Poppy to a tree. And then I thought this was Marigold at first, because I assumed Sadik was dead. But no, He's not dead. This is Sadik. He pops out of the ground in a ghillie suit. You can't see him, and stabs the Nomad in the foot. And I guess they get free. So I thought that was Marigold at first.
Yeah.
And then the Harfoots converge on the dwellers, and they start throwing rocks, and they're trying to save Meteor Man. They're throwing rocks from several directions, so the dwellers are a little confused of where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And then the dweller responds by setting everything on fire. Then Nori approaches. Okay, this is another thing. This is with I mentioned what vibe I'm getting, like that relates to something else I've seen. So Nori approaches the Meteor Man and saying that they need his help. She gives him a staff. I think that's the dweller staff.
Mm-hmm.
And you really get. You remember the movie came out? I think we were kids in the 90s. The Iron Giant.
Yes.
Did you ever see that?
Yes, that's a good film.
This is exactly the Iron Giant. It's the Iron Giant. It's so they show him. You choose who you are, so they get away. So, my writing is so messy. They showed me who I. So yeah, the Meteor Man says they showed him who he was. I'm evil. I'm supposed to be evil. You should get away from me before I hurt you again. And then Nori says, only you can choose who you are. Show who you are. You choose by what you do. And this is pulled from Iron Giant. The little boy in Iron Giant says to the Iron Giant, "You are who you choose to be. So choose." As he's about to like blow him away.
Yeah.
So spoiler, if you've never seen it, this is a spoiler for Iron Giant.
If you haven't seen it, came out in the 90s and it was amazing. What is wrong?
Yeah.
Go see it.
It's about an American boy in the Cold War era who comes across a giant robot. And
it's like an alien robot.
And it also has amnesia. It's exactly the same as Meteor Man. And a little boy, same as a Harfoot, comes across a giant robot with amnesia. That's Meteor Man. And it basically turns out that this Iron Giant was a super weapon, but doesn't realize that he's forgot. And it's ambiguous whether it's an alien power or like a Soviet weapon. They don't really answer that in the movie, if I recall. But the giant ends up facing a choice of whether to be the weapon he was meant to be, or to be what he chooses to be, what Hogarth is like.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of the boy. Kind of sets an example for him to be a good guy robot. And he ends up, no, we don't need to say any more without ruining the movie, but that's the gist of it. And I was like, okay, this is the Iron Giant. It's the exact same thing. It's this powerful being with amnesia who is maybe made for evil, but is choosing to be good. So
yeah.
And I think there's even I think even the Iron Giant says I am good. I don't remember specifically, but I didn't rewatch it. But I think there's a point where the Iron Giant says I'm good. So it's pulled. I mean, they say there's only 7 different types of stories, and you're just it's just every story is just rehashing the 7 stories.
Yeah. Now I will say that the Iron Giant also has some themes tied to like Superman as well.
Okay.
So
Yes.
yeah, like that. Yeah, there's some overlap there, but normally when you tell a story that's been told, you don't have the exact same scene unfold the way you just described. So that let me just say, I mean, maybe we gotta say this off the gate again. I think the Harfoots are bad for this show. I think you could remove the Harfoots and literally just have Meteor Man by himself, or maybe have a human or a dwarf or something meet him and talk to him. But like, I don't like the Harfoots anymore, and I want them gone. So, that being said,
I think they might be gone though.
I think they might be too. That being said, this scene so problematic for me because again, you have these powerful beings that are first of all, their plan to pretend to be the Meteor Man was weird. I mean, why? Just let the Harfoots stumble in and then fire them up with some fire. Like I just don't get the plan. But then the plan doesn't even work because first of all, Meteor Man's not even that powerful, so they subdue him pretty handedly. And then the Harfoots are able to get the upper hand with rocks.
Mm-hmm.
I just let the Meteor Man do it. Let him just be more powerful. If you want this to happen, have the Harfoots come in and screw it up completely and let the Meteor Man save the day. Because this is just weird, and I cannot believe the death fake out they have with Sadok. He's dead. Let him die in that scene and sacrifice himself.
I thought he was dead. I was so that's why I thought it was Marigold who stabbed him in
Yeah.
the foot. And then this is when I kind of see Sadok as alive. I wrote, oh, we see Sadok is alive, and he and Poppy and Marigold are confronted by the Dweller. But we saw Sadok was alive earlier. I just didn't clue in that was him.
Yeah. So the whole way the scene unfolds to me is a bit of a problem, and I will say visually, it's actually a pretty satisfying scene visually. The way that they fight with magic, I really enjoyed seeing. I mean, it's similar to, but it's not a complete ripoff of the duel between Gandalf and Saruman. In terms of just like hurtling each other across the room type thing. I like that part. It's just, and I like all the fire, and I like this idea of Sauron being able to control fire, but also the Meteor Man because he is an Istari. It's just the way that the Harfoots are playing such a central role in this rescue when they're Harfoots. Like, they can't do any, like, and I'm not trying to say that to be like mean to Harfoots or hobbits. I've seen what hobbits can do. Sam is my second favorite character after Boromir. So I like hobbits. It's just, this to me is so unrealistic. Like, imagine if Sam were running up and like fighting Saruman 1v1. It's not gonna go well, and it would be a bad story. So, like, that's all I'm trying to say is, like, it just, to me, it takes me out.
I would have loved it if Sadok says at the end, you guys got the wrong guy. I'm Sauron.
Yeah, that'd be good. Like I said, anyone but Halbrand. That was, I should have started a hashtag on Twitter. Anyone but Halbrand. Elendil. That would have been the twist to end all twists.
Oh.
We'll get to Elendil. Don't worry. So Sadok does die, though, I should say. So I was mad that he didn't die earlier in the scene. He then does die.
It must have been adrenaline or something.
Yeah. So I am glad that consequences happened. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad he didn't just recover and they went on their merry way. So, Sadok does die in this scene, and I think this scene maybe goes on a little bit too long because, after all, who cares about Sadok? Is it just me? Like, he was kind of always mean, and this is the only time he's done anything helpful. I don't know. Like, it's sad. I'm sad, but, like, we don't need this long, drawn-out scene. We've got other important stuff to deal with. So,
Yeah.
So they watch the sunrise, and Sadok sort of dies.
Right. You didn't get to the part. You skipped the part of the Meteor Man killing whatever he does to the.
Oh,
to the
right. Yeah. What is that?
So yeah, they're cornered, and they're cornered by the Dweller. But then the Meteor Man rises to the occasion. He's got the staff now. Extinguishes all the flames. His memory has appeared to have returned. And then we get a "from the shadow you came, or from the shadow I bid you to return," which is sort of like Back to the Shadow. It's kind of a callback. And the cultists realize he's not Sauron, but an Istar. And he sort of, well, you get kind of, they kind of look like the Nazgul do in the Unseen World. That's what I pointed out a lot.
Yeah.
And he basically incinerates them, and they turn into a bunch of moths.
Yeah, so you're right. So a couple things I wanted to touch on here. I like the idea that having the staff increases his power, because that's very similar to the idea of, like, I told you to take the wizard's staff. Like, without that staff, they're still powerful, but just they are handicapped quite a bit without the staff. So I like that. Turning into moths. The first thought I had was, is this the same thing that saves Gandalf when he's trapped?
Yeah, he enslaved the moths.
Yeah,
Now
he
has
like
army
all
of
moths are really just cultists that have been vaporized.
like Gandalf.
Yeah. And then he enslaves them to do his bidding. Gandalf, Lord of the Moths. I'd watch that show.
Anyway, Sadek is dying from the wound he received, and he says that he'll be glad to see his wife again. If you remember that, it was mentioned in the memoriam. They had a female name with Burrows, so presumably that was his wife, and he was sad when he mentioned her.
Yeah, he just left her to die. He took her wheels. I'm kidding. Okay.
And then they all watch the sunrise together, and Sadek dies. And I was just thinking, what would Sadek's in memoriam say? Sadek Burrows, gut wound, or something like
Yeah,
that.
Sadek was stabbed by cultists that turned into moths. We loved him, but he was an idiot.
And now I'll laugh. In memoriams don't usually include how you die, but...
Gut wound. I was waiting to see like someone put fireweed in somebody's toe cream. That's how they die. But yeah, I guess we jump over to Elendil on his way home to Numenor from there.
Yeah, Elendil goes below deck to find Muriel walking around, counting her steps and trying to basically adjusting to life being blind. And then I just wrote, Muriel has sort of the sense to console Elendil. She's conscious that he lost his son. He must be pretty upset.
Well, wait, but before she does that, she kind of chastises him when I don't even know what happened, right? So she's counting steps and she's wrong, so he corrects her. And then she gets mad at him. And
yeah, I try not to think about this stuff.
Oh, see, then I'm like, wait, why is she mad at him? He was condescending somehow? Are you...
She doesn't want to be patronized, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, he wasn't. He was simply saying that you're wrong, and here's the number of steps. Like, I legit don't know why they wrote that scene.
Well, Elendil being a smart man...
He mansplained the steps? Like, what do you...
Does not say I wasn't patronizing you. He just quietly agrees and says, "Okay, I won't patronize you."
This is like the scene. I couldn't stop thinking about that. Like, what is going on in this scene? You are blind, and he's trying to help you, and you're yelling at him. Like, what the hell? Anyway, yeah, you're right. He is sad, and I guess like, okay. So we really haven't had enough time, and we've had plenty of time, but in show length, we haven't had enough time to really question what's going on with Isildur. But like, did nobody go look for him?
No, I mean, I think they saw the house collapse on him, so I think they just assumed that they couldn't possibly get him.
Yeah.
But
I'm shocked he didn't go back looking for him. Is all like that.
Yeah, at least to recover the body.
Yeah. But anyway, I won't harp on that too much because I can see how basically being told we saw him die, you wouldn't want to go see it yourself, and so you would get on the ship and leave. So I'm kind of okay with that. It's weird that we didn't go back to look for him, but at the same time, there's no tension there for the audience because everybody and their grandma knows that he lives. You can't kill Isildur, so I don't even get what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Like, if it had been imagine if it had been Halbrand, and everyone thought he was Sauron. Imagine if he was trapped in a house somewhere, and you're like, oh my god, maybe he's not. Like, that would really stir things up. But Isildur, like, I'm not worried at all.
Yeah. Well, maybe Halbrand will bump into Isildur.
Ooh, yeah, maybe, yeah, and then they become friends.
Isildur has no idea he's Sauron, and they become chummy, and that's why I don't know. Well, we're making stuff. We'll do the.
That's what we do.
We'll save the speculative stuff for the end of the show.
All right.
But we have to remember, to revisit that. But anyway, Elendil says he pulled Galadriel out of the sea, and made his decisions to follow her because Elendil doesn't just mean one who loves the stars; it also means elf friend. So Muriel says her father told her the way of the faithful is committing to pay the price, even if the price cannot be known, and trusting that in the end it will be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
This convinces Elendil to keep serving the faithful, to see things through the end, and he vows to make it worth the price.
Yeah. Now, what did you think about that? Is that deep dialogue to you? Like, do you like that dialogue?
I was fine with it.
I didn't really like it. I kind of felt like it doesn't make much sense. Obviously, it makes sense if you're talking about faith like a religion, which I guess they kind of are. But I don't know. To me, it's not good enough. But Elendil is a believer, so it might convince him.
Yeah. So they return to deck. Elendil and Muriel return to deck because they've arrived at Numenor, and we see these black banners hanging.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think Pharazôn said in the earlier scene that they drop these banners when the king has died.
Yeah. But
And
I
then we
couldn't
see
help but think of look at the color and be like, oh, we've got the Empire on our hands.
Yeah. And then we see Pharazôn over the king's body. Actually, I didn't clue in that he was dead or just asleep. It could be a fake out, but if the banners are there, I guess it means he's dead.
Yeah.
And then we're back to Eregion. We have that explosion from the preview.
Yep.
And it's just Celebrimbor's lab experiment going wrong.
Which is literally what I thought it was.
Oh, is that what you thought?
Like I you know how I feel about Celebrimbor, so I'm like, yeah, he just screwed up. Like, what do you want from me? He's a goof.
So the mithril won't bind to the other metals.
Mm-hmm.
And they're using no matter how much pressure they use.
I wonder if someone can offer some suggestion on what we should do in this.
Yeah.
Not Celebrimbor, who has not had any ideas except for smash it.
Yeah, Halbrand suggests instead of using more force, they tried a gentler approach. And Celebrimbor says, yes, the metals should be drawn or coaxed together. And then he's like, okay, we will try again. And this is when the librarian returns with the scroll for Galadriel. Halbrand seems sort of suspicious. Then Galadriel heads to a bench by the river, Glanduin, to read the scroll. Halbrand arrives saying that they will split the power into two smaller objects. Okay, then I was like, okay, this is rings.
Yeah.
It's too powerful for one object, so we need to create two objects, smaller objects. So I'm like, okay, rings. That's when you're kind of, this is obviously what's happening.
Yeah.
Then Galadriel confronts Halbrand, saying that the line was broken, callback, and there is no king of the Southlands.
Mm-hmm.
Halbrand reminds her that, well, I did tell you that I pulled.
Now, I will say I like that line. I like the smirk and be like, well, I did tell you. I took it from a dead man. I like that. So I think
but we were all saying that he literally said he took it off a dead man.
Yeah. Now, what I will say is, watching with a much more casual fan, this is their favorite scene in the entire episode right here. They love this. I mean, obviously it's not a big twist because there was only two possible Saurons, really. I mean, I had hoped that it was some other one, but it was either Halbrand or it was Meteor Man. And so this reveal, it's a reveal, but it's not amazing reveal, so that's not what people, I think, would get excited about. I just like this idea of him, the way he confronts Galadriel here, the shift that he has in his demeanor. I think it's acted quite well. So I actually enjoyed this scene too, even though it was depressing that it was who everyone thought it was.
Yeah, and he goes on the whole, because he did this like in Numenor too. Remember when the Smiths asked him who he was?
Yep.
And he said, well, I have many, it depends who you are, I have many names, basically what he says. And he does this again here. Galadriel asks who he is, he says, well, I've been known by many names.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, Halbrand's officially revealed to be Sauron. And
Which is,
so
is this not too early? Like, were you expecting this to maybe, like, I was expecting it to maybe go on into season 2, as like,
I did too. I kind of thought they might drag out the Sauron thing a bit longer.
like
Yeah.
I'm shocked that we're already making rings. Like, to be honest, like, you know what I mean? Like, I thought this was gonna be like the final bit of it, but we're already making these rings.
Well, they made the 3, but we still have to make the 9 and the 7.
Yes.
And the 1. So
True.
that's going to be different. And that's the thing. The 3 were made by the elves themselves. That's why they weren't corrupted by it.
Right.
Sauron didn't have anything to do with making those 3 directly.
But yet he did, based on this.
Well, he does, but he didn't. I guess he didn't put his little magic in it himself.
Right.
I don't
see.
know.
So then this is what's weird now, is I always imagine, now maybe I was wrong about this, but I always imagine the elf rings came later because Halbrand had already made these other rings. Or Sauron had already made these other rings with Celebrimbor.
I think in the lore the 3 are made first without Anatar's help.
And then he comes to help for the other ones.
Something like that, yeah.
But now he can't come to help for the other ones.
Oh, he can, because Galadriel did not tell him that Halbrand was Sauron. He didn't tell her. Celebrimbor is gonna just say, Halbrand's gonna come back.
No, it's gotta happen off camera. There's no way that's the plot. Where he just shows up when Galadriel leaves, and they're like, "Oh, Halbrand, there you are. Come, my lad."
Exactly, because Celebrimbor's got that in him. He sees like a brilliant craftsman. He relates to the guy. He likes the guy. I'm gonna work with you anyway. Let's not tell Galadriel. this is gonna happen.
No, it can't happen.
It's gonna happen.
That doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't she say what just happened?
She doesn't. I don't know why she doesn't.
She doesn't. You're right. In fact, she actually there's a point made where she's like, "I'm not going to say." You're right. Elrond asks, "What the heck's going on?" And she's like, "I can't say, and you're gonna have to trust me." And like we did every other time, and you kept doing weird shit, and it kept backfiring on the elves. But anyway.
So Galadriel's pulled into a vision. She's back in Valinor, and she sees Finrod. And Galadriel seems to know that this is Sauron in her head, but she still seems very pleased to see Finrod anyway, because you can see she's got a big. There's a few times where she cracks a big smile, like she's really glad to see Finrod, even though she knows it's all fake.
Yeah. And
Finrod says, quote unquote, Finrod's really Sauron says that Sauron's goal was to ensure peace and heal Middle Earth, and that they should let Celebrimbor continue his work. And he tells Galadriel to touch the darkness once more. And then I went by then he gives a weird smile, and then I'm called back to the line with Frodo and Aragorn. Seems fair, but feels foul.
Yeah.
Just a reversing that. So this is why, he's a bad guy. He seems fair, but he feels foul.
Mm-hmm.
And then she walks away, and he yells at her, and then they're back on the raft instead. And Sauron just says, "Galadriel, I am your friend." And Sauron says that Morgoth's defeat was liberating to him, and he sought to make things right so he could be forgiven. And you said before, he reminds Galadriel what she said to him before: whatever you've done, be free of it. And Galadriel did say that.
Yeah. Yeah, you've forgiven Sauron. You can go in peace, Galadriel.
And we see Sauron's reflection in the water.
Yeah, so this is also where I think casual fans were kind of getting excited because of the shippable moment here. So Sauron is like almost like asking her out in a way.
Oh yeah, he wants her to be his queen.
Yeah, like together we could rule you and me and
Star Wars callback.
Yeah.
This is Vader talking to Luke.
Yeah. Or I guess in the newer one, it's Kylo talking to Rey.
Something like that, yeah. I guess you could call that back. And then they have a callback to "You can be stronger than the foundations of the earth." this is that's taken from Fellowship. And yeah, Sauron wants to make her the queen so they can rule together. They say they're brought together for a purpose. She says Galadriel binds Sauron to the light, and Sauron binds Galadriel to power, and together they can save Middle-earth. And by that he means rule Middle-earth, which is also Star Wars vibes. That's what Anakin kind of says to Padme. Together we can make things right. And Padme is that you mean rule by that, and I don't know you anymore, something like that. Galadriel rejects the temptation, so this is like Jesus in the desert with Satan. That's what I was thinking of.
I was just thinking of Galadriel rejecting the temptation from the Lord of the Rings.
That too.
Yeah,
but I think,
it's very like in the idea, like the idea there being like she's if this were canon, for example, having the ring in front of her is essentially like this guy's spirit is right there in front of her, and she could resurrect him by just taking that ring. So if she did want to fulfill, like, she almost had a second chance to complete this.
So you could also, and this I got from Nerdrotic, this is not my words, but Nerdrotic jumped in here and said, okay, so they've made Sauron an incel now.
Wait,
so
what?
Because Galadriel rejects his romantic advances, and then he runs off.
But he's the villain.
He's an incel.
No. See, this is the problem with Nerdrotic. He actually doesn't know too much about pop culture. That is not an incel. So, in this scene, if you're a villain and someone rejects you, you're not an incel. You're a villain.
No, he's reject. He had a crush on Galadriel.
Yeah, but he's a villain. There's not much in him but lies and deceit.
she rejects his romantic advances to be made queen, and now he was good. Now he's gonna go be evil.
So actually, this is something I was. So I will admit to this. I think this is something that is interesting about the scene in that because of we've come to know Halbrand, I think some of us wanted to believe his story there. And I'll just say a lot of guys don't have to consider that this might be a lie because this is not something that we have to worry about on a daily basis.
Well, I agree with you that he's just deceiving her to use her.
Yeah. So
but I got a good kick out of that. They've made the villain an incel.
I mean, I see what he's trying to say there, but I reject the idea that that's what this scene is. This scene to me is more about Galadriel fighting off. Now, I will say it's not been set up properly. I wanted Galadriel to be a lot more darker during this confrontation, but because they had already brought each other down, this is what makes no sense about him being Sauron. He saved her. Not just from drowning, which you can chalk up to saying, oh, he was using her to eventually get to the elves. Sure. But he then actually talks to her and convinces her to be good and to not lean into the evil and hatred inside of her. And to me, I think a better idea would have been have him be the voice of darkness. If he's going to be Sauron, have Halbrand be the voice telling her, hey, lean into that anger, lean in. I know we're going to Star Wars, okay? I'm trying to get out of it, but it's hard. But then you have Elendil or someone be the other side, the voice of reason, and say that's not who you are. That's not what your brother would have wanted, that kind of stuff. Then during this scene, having her overcome her desire for power to seek vengeance, then it would be more powerful to me. But because she's already been kind of talking like she's no longer got that rage, it's not as powerful of a scene. But I think that's what the scene is supposed to be. That's my interpretation of it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I think I said that he was kind of toying with her when he rescued her, and maybe he. But you're right. It sounds like he had given up if there's two, he says he had given up, right? When he found her, and
Yeah.
him. I don't know. Maybe there's like, I mean, well, this is going on evolution, but like making friends is not necessarily altruistic. There is a benefit to being socially compliant and being nice to people and making friends with people. Him maybe he recognized she's a powerful elf and befriending her would benefit him somehow. That could be why
Yeah.
he saved her. And you can spin it. He can spin it like, oh, I'm a good guy, but no, he could still be like a psychopath.
Yeah.
But he realized saving her would benefit him somehow. I don't know.
No,
Something
you're
like that.
you're right. Like that. I'm not saying that like saving her completely undone like makes the whole thing a big plot hole. It's just there were some moments where he goes out of his way to save her there, or to kind of talk to her when he's in jail and she's not in jail, and kind of like speak reason to her. And it's weird though, because I would have expected him to be, feeding in to that anger for her. And I think, though, if I were going to do this exact same story, that's sort of how I would set it up, where like they become very close because he accepts her for who she is. All these other elves do not. They all tell her to get lost. Like she's trouble. And yet Halbrand is there saying, "Oh no, you're awesome. Like feed into that vengeance. You're so powerful."
Well, yeah, Sauron says that. He says that he alone could see Galadriel's light, and I just said to myself, "Well, that's sure true. Not in the audience sees her light." So,
Well, this is what I'm saying is like we already, like, you and I have basically been saying that we are the one of the few people out here saying Galadriel is not the hero of this story. And for a while that was true, but now I am not sure what her deal is, because the stuff she has tried to do in the past and the stuff that she has said she wants to do now, there are times where she doesn't seem to be that person. And so it's not even clear like what Galadriel we're going to get in any given scene. And that's why I think a more consistent, almost villainy type Galadriel, where you almost question, is Galadriel Sauron at this point? I think that would have set up a much better scene there where she rejects it. But like that, and that's where it gets kind of frustrating, because you and I have been pointing out Galadriel's not a good person. Everyone's commenting on it, but they're all kind of complaining about it. I actually enjoyed it. I like that she wasn't just this goody good, like, couldn't be harmed, couldn't do wrong, like all this stuff. Think back, she's led to a lot of these problems. And I really hope that I really hope that they don't pull what everyone is saying they're going to pull and essentially chalk it up to Galadriel was right all along. Like, this all had to happen. I do not want that, because it didn't. This did not have to happen. And it's ridiculous to think that it did. That she had to disobey Gil-galad, jump off the ship, get mutinied first of all, get sent to Valinor despite failing, jump off the ship, get rescued by Halbrand because she was going to die, convince Numenor to go fight a battle, which then killed a bunch of people from Numenor, all to then bring Sauron up to the elves.
but also all along convincing Sauron that there's like a power inside him to like be a leader, and Sauron's like given up. He's like left at the option. I can just be a blacksmith in Numenor. This is great.
Yeah, he even says that. He's like, I would have been happy in Numenor with no. I mean, I know he's like this is like him joking.
But
like,
this is another thing though, because Halbrand, he doesn't and maybe the fact that he's revealed to be a bigger deal is all. I'm trying to put this into words. He's naive of what Numenor is when they arrive to Numenor.
Yes.
He says, I didn't know men like me could make this. He doesn't know what Numenor is, yet he knows all about Eregion and Celebrimbor.
oh,
Why
true.
doesn't he know about Numenor? But he
Or
knows
was that literally a line just to like get him sympathy within like from Galadriel. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was him to like he's really trying to sell that he's just a simple person from the
Yeah,
Southlands.
but he doesn't keep up the grift.
No.
He jumps into now he's like, oh, I'm a master blacksmith at it. My master used to tell me all about you, Celebrimbor.
Yeah.
He doesn't like how come he would know about Celebrimbor and Aragion and the Smiths there, but not the Smiths in Numenor?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it like and this is the kind of stuff where it's like, is Sauron just getting over like this is the thing, you could chalk it up to Sauron seeing an opportunity and almost getting ahead of himself by revealing too much, like you just said, or is this just a mistake? Like it's really hard when the consistency just hasn't been there. I will say though, after the Halbrand to Sauron scene, I think there's a moment there where Galadriel has to give up the dagger. So this is like a double, like she's rejected Sauron. I almost think the dagger should have happened first, because so she rejects Sauron. That's the big reveal / rejection. The dagger, I know she's been carrying this dagger this whole time, but like I already know that she's gonna do it because she's rejected Halbrand. I just feel like the dagger would have been like a moment to like.
Well, I would actually say not quite, because this is all based on like they don't know that this is gonna work. So she's giving up her dagger on a gamble that Celebrimbor's crazy idea is gonna work.
It's not crazy. It's Celebrimbor. He's the genius that came up with all this on his own, and he didn't have to memory charm anybody.
But it's like, imagine you have like your most prized possession, and someone says, "Well, there's a 10% chance me destroying it, we can save the world, or we can all just leave."
Well, this is getting at the idea of what is Valinor. Can they all just leave? But even regardless of that, to me, it's not even. I know it's her prized possession, but you're framing it that way. It's really a reminder of her vengeance. Like, that's all it is. So it's just a dagger that reminds her that her brother's dead. And not that she needed reminding, like that's why she kept it. So to me, I don't think it's the fact that it's that dagger, it's that it was her brother's dagger. And the giving it up is her not feeling that quest for vengeance anymore. That's why I thought having other people kind of talk her down, or at least like try to talk to her, would have been better, because then this kind of comes up right after the Sauron thing, and it's too much of the same scene, just with different people, like where she has to like, oh, I have to give up my dagger now. I don't know. I would prefer to have them like stretched out a little bit more, like have the dagger happen earlier or later, and then have the Sauron reveal happen. But because the dagger has been a big deal, like it's literally been in every scene she's in. So it happens so quick that like blink and you miss the fact that she's just given up her dagger to make the very rings that she. Well, I mean, is this a spoiler? She's gonna get one of the rings. Is that a spoiler?
No, I don't think that's a spoiler.
I mean, it might be a spoiler if you haven't seen the original trilogy or the Hobbit movies. But yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, Elrond is the one that pulls her out of the water, the river. And so I'll just start calling him Sauron now. He's disappeared. And Galadriel rushes back to Celebrimbor and says that no one should treat with Halbrand again, but she does not reveal that he's Sauron.
True.
She says that I don't think he'll ever come back, but if he does, never treat with him again. But she doesn't reveal that he's Sauron.
I really hope you're wrong about how they're gonna have this play out.
No, I think Celebrimbor is just gonna work with him again.
Yeah, but then again, if that happens, what we're saying is that it's once again Galadriel's fault, because she could have just said what's going on, but she refuses to, because at this moment she's kind of embarrassed about it, I guess. and so she doesn't want anyone to know that she brought Sauron into into this. But by doing that, if what you're saying might happen happens, once again she has failed to protect the elves, and
Oh yeah.
like so. That's all.
Well, I mean, the other thought is that because Sauron can change forms, what if he actually does come? Because people are annoyed, like, well, they got rid of Anatar, it's just Halbrand now.
Yeah.
What if he just comes back as Anatar, like, after all this?
Yeah, so, yeah, if he comes back as a different form, I think that's much better. If it's just Halbrand, like, because I kind of liked your idea of Celebrimbor working with Halbrand because he took a liking to him. But the fact that the reveal happens now means that it really
late.
should be
Or it's too early.
Yeah, like it's too early to reveal that he's Sauron, because now it is somebody's fault. It's either Galadriel's, or if she were to say that is Sauron, and then Celebrimbor works with
Well,
them,
think
then
about this. What if this is what they do? Every season, Sauron comes back in a different form, and the whole thing is guessing who Sauron's gonna be every season.
That's good. That's good. A little who's who. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, at this point, there's not many people that you can bring in. So like, even if Sauron comes back, we're gonna know right away, kind of based on some of the tells. Like, we know his fondness for like smithing and crafting. So yeah, we'll see. It's not clear that he's a shapeshifter yet. Like, Halbrand has not shapeshifted ever.
No, he hasn't needed to.
No.
I guess.
Like, but even in the scene, I mean, we'll get to them. But even in scenes coming up, he doesn't shapeshift.
Yeah. Well, he does. I mean, I don't know if he would though, because I mean, we can discuss this later. But the Southlanders don't know that he's not Sauron. He could go manipulate the Southlanders, saying, "I'm your king. You have to follow me. We're going to take Mount Doom back." He could bump into a Isildur. A Isildur is like, at least knows who he is. So maybe he rescues a Isildur and then manipulates a Isildur into helping him kill Adar or something. You know, there's a lot to be gained from people not knowing who he is and him keeping this form. But
True.
Anyway, that's a tangent. So Galadriel suggested that he had to make 3 rings instead of 2. So this is Galadriel's idea to make 3.
Yeah.
Because 1 corrupts, 2 divides, but with 3 and Celebrimbor cuts in, there is balance.
Yeah. I don't really get that, but
the alloy requires pure gold from Valinor, and Finrod's dagger, that which is Galadriel's. I wrote Galadriel's most prized possession, meets the criteria. So she agrees to have it melted down to an alloy. We don't see that till a little bit later. So we're back to Meteor Man and Nori. So Meteor Man still wants to go to Rune, and he tells her that, well, Nori asks, but he tells her that Istar means wise one or wizard. So now we know that he's a wizard.
Yep.
They don't name what wizard he is.
We can only hope that it's one of the blue ones.
Then they had a line that adventures must be shared, going alone is a journey. So he wants Nori to go with him, I guess.
I like that line. I've
did
criticized this dialogue a lot. I actually really enjoyed that line, and it's original.
Yeah. So it seems that I actually wrote in my notes too. I do like this.
Yeah.
So Malva has taken on Sadic's role as the Pathfinder.
Yeah. But she can't read maps.
And the astrologist. Yeah. Well, this is goofy because she has the map upside. She has the. I mean, it's definitely just a joke.
I know it's just a joke, but like, you know what I mean, right? Like,
she has the map upside down. She's like, "Okay, we're going downhill," and then Poppy says, "Well, you have it upside down," and they flip it over, and it's, "Oh, we're going uphill." A map wouldn't work.
No, like none of that makes any. Like, the joke falls flat because the premise of the joke means the writer of the joke doesn't know what a map is.
No, it's just goofy. I think it's just goofy.
I know, and I'm harping on it too much, but like I really wanted to like these Harfoots. Like, they had such a strong start, and then it gets to that. Like, I don't know. It makes me sad and frustrated that we didn't get more of a sort of a setup the way that the Lord of the Rings has with the hobbits. Like, I don't feel the same connection to these creatures.
Yeah. So Nori walks back down to her family from the Meteor Man, and she finds that her family's already packed a bag for her to go with the Meteor Man.
Yeah.
And then she decides to go. So she first says goodbye to Poppy, who kind of says goodbye quickly and abruptly to kind of hide her emotions and disappears. And then she's talking to her dad, and she's recounting what Largo had taught her before
Oh God.
she says goodbye to the rest of the family.
We should
so...
just skip this whole thing. Okay,
Well, we can skip what he said. It's okay.
No, we could do it. It's dumb. It's terrible.
I didn't even write it down, so
Oh.
But it's the stuff like you gotta be polite. An impolite Harfoot's gonna get as far as a square wheel. Don't go to the bathroom upstream in case you end up drinking water downstream. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then she says to her mom that she'll be careful, and she says, "No, you'll be bold," which is, I guess that's anti-Harfoot. Not being careful, it's being.
Yeah.
Harfoot's about being careful, not bold. Nori's gonna be bold, but not careful.
Yeah.
Then Poppy comes back for another goodbye. It's a tearful, it's emotional. We feel bad that Poppy's gonna be alone again, and we're kind of hoping that she would. At least my thought was, well, I thought you would just go with her.
I thought so too. That's what I thought. That like, so when Poppy said goodbye initially, I thought Poppy was like gonna come. I expected another scene with her, and then she comes running. I'm like, oh, good, Poppy's coming, and then it's like, nope. I'm like, but why?
We need our Frodo and Sam. What's going on here?
Poppy's the best one.
or Pippin and Sam, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, whatever these two are supposed to resemble from the original, that's what we need. And then the wizard is, I don't know, but maybe the wizard is Frodo, and then these two are like a combination of the other three hobbits.
Yeah, I felt bad for Poppy.
Yeah.
That I guess that means I care about the character.
Poppy went from being my least favorite Harfoot to start the show to my favorite Harfoot to come at the end of the season.
And to not quote Sam, that's not saying a lot.
What about Poppy the Brave? I want to hear more about her.
So yeah, Meteor Man and Nori head off, and we have a call back to when in doubt, Eleanor Brandyfoot, always follow your nose.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say either this is Gandalf, or it's a close associate who heard it from the same source. And this is the other thought I had. This could be a loophole because people are upset because I think Tolkien has said that the hobbits didn't do anything significant in the Second Age of Middle-earth.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe by sending Nori off to Rune, and she can do significant stuff there, and is that a loophole?
I mean, that's still part of. At least I've always considered it part of Middle-earth. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But either way, I don't. This is why I wanted Meteor Man to do more fighting off. Like, I know he eventually does the final blow to the cultists, but the fact that the Harfoots saved him, that's what I didn't like. I thought that their attempt to save him should have completely and utterly failed, and then Meteor Man just gets hold of the staff and wins. Because to me, it's still an out. They really haven't done anything. Now Nori following this guy, perhaps she does. Like, it's basically her friendship convinced him to be a good guy, which to me is significant. So like it's hard. It is hard to figure out. But if it's a blue wizard, the blue wizards have done nothing of significance either. So
that's been documented.
Yeah.
There's suggestions that the blue wizards were instrumental in ways that we didn't see in the East and the South.
But maybe not in the Second Age.
Maybe not in the Second.
Because I mean,
Age,
heck, we don't even know if blizzards are in the Second Second Age. So
Yeah. But yeah, okay, we're back at Galadriel, and she's agreed to have Finrod's dagger melted down, and we see that happen. And the merge with the Mithril is successful. Everyone seems relieved. Elrond returns to the bench by the Glanduin River, and he finds the scroll in the water, and I think he clues in that there's no king of the Southlands too.
yeah,
And he returns to the workshop with the scroll. So it seems I don't know if he knows that Halbrand's Sauron, but he must at least know Halbrand's not who he said he was.
right.
And it's a success. Rings are forged, and the Celebrimbor's 3 jewels that are added to one to each. And these ones were created by the elves only, so they are uncorrupted, basically. I think that's the way I saw it.
Yeah.
And Galadriel sees that Elrond has the scroll, so she must know that he knows something.
Yeah.
And then it ends. We see that Sauron has returned to Mordor, and he's heading to Mount Doom. And I guess he's gonna try to kill Adar and take control. And some thoughts I had was that he could bump into a Isildur along the way, and Isildur could play a role, or Waldreg, who's kind of devoted to Sauron probably before Adar, might play a role in helping him. Then I thought, well, could we still see Anatar? Could Sauron change form again, come back to Rhaegon as Anatar? These are just some things that I was thinking of.
Well, like if he can change to look like people we already know, similar to those cultists, then you really have multiple ways for him to come back here. Especially if like Elrond is with the dwarves for an extended period of time, he could come back as Elrond or something like that. So there's a lot of ways that they can play with his shape-shifting, if that's the way they want to go. I kind of hope they don't. I know that it's canon that he can shapeshift, so it's okay if he does. To me, it's a better story if he like figures out a way to trick himself back in the way he is. Like if he's able to just simply go up to Celebrimbor, and Celebrimbor, despite knowing who he is like, well,
But I don't know if he does. Like Galadriel didn't say, so that's what I said. He could just straight up come back after Galadriel leaves and say, "Okay, let's make a few more of these."
Yeah. So to me, I think I would like it better now. I know it's probably not canon because Celebrimbor was probably a great elf instead of this doofus. But if he knows that Halbrand is Sauron, and despite that, still wants to work with him because he only cares about art, and he's able to separate like the art of crafting from the artist Sauron, I think that would be an interesting dynamic. I know people might not like that. I don't even know if I would like it. It's just something I was thinking about. Because I mean, I think it's too easy of a story to just have like a bunch of people we already know come in and be secret Sauron. I don't know. I'm not sure how intriguing it will be if that's like the going forward. If like that's how each season pans out. It's kind of fun maybe for one season, but for 5, do we really want to just keep saying, "Oh, who's Sauron this time"? Like it.
Oh no, they're not gonna. That's not gonna fly. I was kind of kidding, but then again, who knows what they'll do?
There's also like an arrogance to Sauron that I think is required. Like that's why I think he wouldn't shapeshift to do it. I mean, he might for one, but I think there's an arrogance to him that like he's right, he's better, like he doesn't need to do all this stuff. He can just go in there and forge it himself, maybe. Like, I don't know. I'm not really sure where they're going with this because, like, this is so early for me. I did not expect us to be making rings yet. I didn't even expect Halbrand to meet Celebrimbor this season. So,
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to, like, wrap my head around what we're doing for the next seasons. Like, I know we need to make the rest of the rings, and eventually he's got to make his own ring. But I just don't know, like, what else we're gonna do. But like, there's stuff with the dwarves, yes, but like, what else other than making these rings and claiming Mordor is Sauron doing? Now I will say one of the reasons that they set this up as a Who's Sauron apparently is because they were worried that by showing us who Sauron is at the start, the whole show would be, or the season would be the Sauron show. And I mean, despite them not telling us who Sauron was, it kind of was, because every episode we're like, who's Sauron? Is it this guy? Is it this guy? Is it that random background actor? Like that was what everyone was doing anyway. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from here, because now we know who Sauron is.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, this was. I don't know how, like, it wasn't super lackluster, but what is this season like rewatchable to you? Like are you enthusiastically ready to rewatch the entire season? I don't.
Yeah.
Think, I don't.
I would actually.
You
yeah.
would? See, I don't know if I am, because a lot of the stuff they're setting up the next season.
I mean, I wouldn't, because I've already watched every episode 2 or 3 times for this project we've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
But had I just been a casual viewer watching them one at a time, I'm pretty sure I would rewatch it all. Yeah.
Okay, so you're much more positive than I am. I don't know if it's rewatchable. Now, maybe I'm biased too, because I've been doing the same thing. But to me, there's not enough of the substance that, I mean, I will say it feels like Lord of the Rings, but there's just not enough stuff there that I found that really captivated me, like philosophically or emotionally. Like, I really didn't care about Sadek Burrows at all. So I didn't care about the Harfoots at all. So anything that happens there, I'm not even that sad.
I care about Poppy.
Okay, I cared about Poppy. You're right. Poppy.
I think I care a little bit about Nori. Enough.
Yeah. I care enough about Nori, but like I said, I could have done without the Harfoots, and so to me, there really wasn't enough attention paid, especially at the end, to what's happening with the dwarves. I still don't even know if he's been disowned.
We didn't have any dwarfs this episode.
And the thing is, that whole dwarven plot was essentially useless because we didn't even get the Mithril.
It didn't amount to anything. That's true. Yeah.
Which is fine. You can have that in a show, but we didn't even like try anything else with the dwarves. It was like,
we also didn't get Arondir or Bronwyn or Theo this episode.
No. Now I didn't think we would, unless Isildur like stumbled out of that like burned building and made his way to where they are. That was the only thing I thought we might see. But even that, I thought it'd be kind of weird to do the fake out. I mean, hey, people do this all the time in movies and shows, like a fake out death and then you reveal it's fake out right away. Heck, we literally saw it in this episode with Sadek. He gets a knife, he dies, he then saves the day, but oh nope, he's actually gonna die soon anyway. So I thought maybe we would see that, but I didn't. And the other thing is, I didn't expect us to go back to Numenor so soon, because I thought it would take a while to go there. So
they just arrived there. They haven't dealt with the consequences of the king's death quite yet.
Meanwhile, Galadriel got Halbrand to the elves in no time flat. In fact, they've been hard at work forging rings, and Halbrand's been having a grand old time just hanging out with his favorite elf smith.
Yeah, well, that's another thing that reminded me, because remember when he goes into Celebrimbor? I'm going down the incel road again, but
okay. We can address this incel.
He goes into Celebrimbor's workshop. The first thing he says is Galadriel here. So I wonder if that is like he's really looking for her. He's like pining for her. He misses her. He's in love with Galadriel.
So, because he.
Well, that's what he goes into Celebrimbor's shop, and the first thing he says is Galadriel here.
But I thought that was just a way of him like, oh, I was
I wonder
looking
if-
for Galadriel, like, you know.
But I wonder if he's earnestly looking for her, and then he just happens to stumble in there because he's madly in love with her.
You know what? Perhaps. I'll even say maybe he did. That doesn't make him an incel. Just simply being rejected is not incel worthy to me.
No, but he goes from he's rejected, but then he's evil after. Well, he's evil anyway, but.
But yeah, so basically what you, well, not you maybe, but what Nerderotic is either joking or actually saying is that what he got from the story was the rejection of Galadriel turned Sauron evil. That's not what I took away from it, so that's why the incel thing doesn't work for me. So Galadriel, the thing is, Galadriel and Halbrand, while they have become somewhat friendly, there was never any romantic stuff there for me. Maybe I'm just missing it.
I didn't really catch anything romantic either.
So whether or not Halbrand did eventually have feelings, I just didn't think it was conveyed enough to warrant that. That's why, to me, it wasn't even that. It was a weird shock, but it wasn't even like a. I wasn't expecting Galadriel to be like, oh, you wanted us to rule together. Like, oh yeah, I was like, no way is Galadriel falling for this. Like, you've never expressed anything but like camaraderie because you're both going in the same direction with Galadriel. I mean, yeah, you saved her that one time randomly for I don't know why, but other than that, you guys have kind of been like slightly at odds. Like, both of you have slightly different ideas on how you want this to play out, because Halbrand never really wanted, he claimed to never really want people to know who he was, and Galadriel just goes, I don't care, and just like tells people, because she wants to use his ancestry to help convince the Numenorians to help. So I don't know. There's like, looking back, I can see it working out. It's just
Actually,
it is strange.
this is another problem. Is that how come no one knew the line of the Southlands had been broken?
I still don't even know how can they know.
But 1,000 years is not that long ago.
No.
In elf time, like there's elves alive who would remember this king of the Southlands, even maybe.
Yeah, Celebrimbor probably.
The guy who wrote the damn scrolls probably still alive.
No, he was sent to Valinor. After completing the scrolls, he gets to go to Valinor and live out the rest of his days. Or, I guess, not live out. I'm not really sure. Yeah, like, that's what was kind of confusing to me, too. And also, like, how would you know that the line is... Like, he never told you what line he was.
Right, he could say, like, well, he could have just said, well, the document's wrong.
Yeah, or I'm a bastard that upon everyone dying, I decided to take my father's name and I don't know, like what, like this is not Game of Thrones, I admit, so they're not gonna be like, you're a bastard, I'm a bastard. Like, no, but still, like I just, the document to me, it's kind of not enough convincing. Now he just completely turns and like, oh, okay, so you are Sauron. Like, this is.
But you're right. He could have just said, well, the document's wrong, and that would have been almost like, okay, that's a legitimate possibility.
Yeah. Like, how would you guys know? Like there is a big battle, and
it just means that the scroll wasn't updated.
Yeah.
After.
Yeah, like maybe the people you have who you claim have died on the scroll, they actually had children that you forgot about or didn't put on the scroll, and then that's essentially how Aragorn is, because people think Aragorn's line, or Isildur's line, is broken, and Aragorn comes out of nowhere for people of Gondor.
And it was remade.
I don't know if that's.
Oh, that would have horrified people if Galadriel says the line was broken and he just says it has been remade.
Well, the funny thing is they have enough of these random lines that I could see it and I would have recognized it, but I wouldn't have even like made a note of it. I might have said it's a weird spot for it, as is the air that direction smells better than the air. They're in the middle of a field. The air everywhere is the same.
Gonna be consistent, yeah.
At least Gandalf was in a mine shaft with 3 directions, and he was legit smelling the air wafting out of these tunnels, not in the open air.
And it actually makes sense. I mean, the foul smells probably where the orcs are.
Yeah.
You want to go to the cleaner smelling
Exactly, exactly. It's not a joke there. It actually kind of works. Here, it's just like what are you talking about, Folly? You're going east, you said. Just go east. You don't need to smell the directions. Just go
That's
that way.
true.
Like, who cares which way smells better? You're going east, you said. But why are we debating this? Like, why does Nori not know where they're going? We've already established we're going east.
Yeah, they just shouldn't have put that line in, just because it just screams, I'm Gandalf, and we don't need that.
And here's the thing. If you really want to throw that line in, if you are a writer on this show and you're like, oh, I need to have him say it smells better.
Have a Harfoot say it or something.
Yes.
Or another character where it's
Yes,
not relevant.
and have them say it as they're already going east. Like, oh, I'm glad we're going east. It smells better. This, like, you know what I mean? Like, don't have it be the reason they go that direction. We know they have to go east. So I don't know what the heck that line is. They have a few of them in here, and you and I, we've talked about them before. We're like, we're gonna pick some of them out and make fun of them, but there's so many. Which, on the one hand, I'm shocked. I did not think they would do that, and I'm kind of glad they did it to some degree because I like that idea. But they did it in weird spots that really don't make sense. We talked about some lines that we do like. The one earlier when Meteor Man, Gandalf, whoever he is, when he like vaporizes the cultists, like sending them back to the shadows. Like I know it's not an exact quote, but I like the tone and the meaning are the same, and so that's good enough for me. Like that's pretty good. I like that line. So there's a way to do it. It's just throwing them in randomly, like there, where this way, follow your nose, like. It's just random and just to be a callback, and then for you and I to like talk about it. Yeah. So, I'm on one hand, I am kind of disappointed in this season. I know it's a setup season, but I just feel like it didn't captivate enough of the, like, I don't even know what tone the show is going for going forward. Because there were some episodes that were all battle. There were some episodes that were a lot more goofy. And so it's just really hard to get like a grasp on what we're to expect going forward. And I think that's part of the issue that some people are having with the show. Not just the lore and the dialogue, but just what kind of show is it? Is this going to be a battle-heavy show? Because some people criticize, believe it or not, some people criticize the Lord of the Rings. I mean, we've kind of talked about this, but the original trilogy, they say it's got too many battle scenes in it. Because if you read the books, the battle scenes are written. They have some detail, but they're not nearly as much detail as like simply walking through the forest. Like the battle scenes are considerably shorter within the books, and Peter Jackson made them take up almost half of the last 2 movies. And so some people criticize that aspect, but at least you kind of knew going in after the first movie that, all right, we're really starting to, like, we're going to have battles here. Like, there's going to be some good action. I just don't know what we're getting in this show. Like, is this going to be more of a political drama now that we've seen Numenor kind of reject their queen in a way, and we're going to see some political drama play out there? Maybe same thing with the elves, especially if Celebrimbor continues to work with Halbrand or Sauron or something. What's going on with the dwarves? Like, we really seem like we're shaping up to be like a political drama, but we didn't get enough of that in this first season, so I don't even know what that's going to look like. That's where my concern is. So, when we do get to the next season, if I guess we get to the next season, I don't even know what show we're watching, and I guess to me that's frustrating. It's kind of exciting in a way because you're basically getting a brand new show where you don't really know what to expect, but I just think if you're gonna do a first season, it's my same critique of Game of Thrones, or I guess House of the Dragon, is that I just don't know what we're getting, and this season seemed to be setting up the next season, but it didn't show us like what we're in store for. Like we're gonna get maybe a battle once a season that's gonna take an entire episode. Is that sort of I don't know. I kind of wish it was spaced out more. So and that's the other thing about this episode in particular. They really should have restructured it so that all of the Galadriel and Halbrand stuff comes at the very end, because what they really should have done is have the stuff that happens earlier in timeline-wise happen at the front. And so Meteor Man confronting the cultists, or the cultists capturing him, I guess, that can happen right away. And then have all the Harfoot stuff play out.
Well, ironically, if he wants to go to Rune, if he had just stuck with the cultists, they would have taken him there. It would have been easy.
Yeah, I was getting that too. Like, why did we fight off the I mean, I know the cultists were going to kill the Harfoots, but like, the cultists wanted to take you to Rune. It seems like that's where you shouldn't go. I know you want to go there to find the stars, but like, it just seems like a weird idea to go there when that is obviously the place where the villains, what we presume to be the villains, wanted to go to as well. But I mean, those are minor plot. I mean, the show is full of these kind of minor plot hole details that we've picked up on and kind of made fun of. But yeah, I am concerned. I mean, you are too, that like the show doesn't even continue because of all the negativity it's had. And I would be sad. As much as I critique it, I do enjoy parts of the show, and it does feel like Lord of the Rings, and I really appreciate that. There's moments where it takes me out. Yeah. But like they were already said to be like starting filming season 2. So at the very least, I expect season 2.
Yeah, and I like. Well, you know what? This is what I had thought what would happen, and it's too late now. He's been revealed. But I had thought maybe the fact that Halbrand was just a little too obvious. They would start rewriting season 2 and come up with a different Sauron. But no, I guess they're committed. But they maybe they'll listen to the criticisms and try to make improvements to their scripts, their dialogues, their story, whatever you want to say.
So that's a question I have for people like Nerdrotic and other YouTubers who talk about Lord of the Rings. So even if you weren't impressed with this season, or even if you weren't really happy with it, if the next season, if they bring on, say, Peter Jackson to read some scripts, if they touch base with some of the more established lore, like the keepers of the lore, if you will, of Tolkien, is that good enough? Like, is that good, and you're willing to watch season 2? I mean, it's going to be hard to write a lore perfect story with the setup they have already established. But going forward, I guess they can try and mitigate some of the massive lore changes. But the ones that have already been established, we're already stuck on this path. So I just don't know. Is it savable from that regard, or is it just too late? Like, even if you brought all these people back on board to continue this story, it seems almost impossible. And like, who would want to? If you were like Peter Jackson, you're trying to continue this story. Like, you're almost like how am I supposed to do that while also making people happy? Like, it's just an impossible task.
I mean, presumably they do have this all mapped out, so maybe they can just make minor tweaks.
Yeah. Well, and that's one aspect that I've always liked hearing, is that they have mapped this out. It's looking like the map, like the fact that Halbrand was so obvious from the very beginning. It really didn't, like the plan they had. It's just very confusing. If they wanted to make this show as like a mystery, it really didn't do that. Other than they threw some red herrings that were just random, which, take it or leave it. Now they don't have that, so I don't even know what. Like, this is the thing, is I don't even know what show we're getting going forward. So what, like, is it just
we're gonna have some polydrama in Numenor. Isildur's sisters learned some stuff from the Palantir, so she's gonna be maybe talking to her dad about this sort of stuff. Maybe to I do wonder. Maybe the Numenor, because in the lore, Sauron corrupts the Numenorians, so maybe Pharazôn just corrupts them himself.
Well, actually, like you said, nobody else knows that Halbrand is Sauron, because Galadriel is not telling. So he could just go to Numenor and be like, "Oh, the elves sent me here to teach you some smithing or something. I don't know." And then he starts corrupting. Like. Because we've now established he's Sauron, but Galadriel is being stubborn and won't reveal that. You can do a lot with him still, but this is what people are gonna get frustrated at. Is that it's again Galadriel's fault, and it's like one of these things where it's like a movie-only thing. In real life, if someone were in that situation, I think you say that this guy is Sauron. Like the fact that he was able to escape, like. I don't know how long she was knocked out in the river, but like the fact that they didn't immediately like alert the guards to like capture Halbrand, who's now just walking down the road.
Yeah.
It's just a weird way of conducting yourself against your biggest enemy.
Just a random thought, because it just goes into the more of the words Halbrand was using, but they turned out to not be lies. Then on the raft, Galadriel asked what happened, and he said he was run off from his lands by orcs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's true.
That's true.
Adar's an orc. He ran him off, basically. So
yeah, I will say there is some clever bits thinking back with Halbrand. Like obviously we already kind of assumed he was Sauron, but we didn't know which parts were true and which parts were lie. Like when he said, "I got this off a dead man," we always thought this is probably him telling the truth. If he is Sauron, this is him telling the truth. And it turned out to be the truth. But then, like you said, yeah, going back to that line, that's also true in an ironic twist that, like, when you hear that, you think, no way could he be Sauron. Yeah. If that's true. But both are true. And so that is kind of a fun moment. And there are some other moments when he's talking to Galadriel, about his past and all this stuff. Whether or not he's toying with her or whether or not he actually does feel bad, that I can't say for certain. But either way, to get Galadriel, the biggest, or I guess the most hateful of all the elves, to admit to Sauron, to his face, that it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. We can move forward. Like, whether or not he's toying with her or not, those are kind of lines that are going to stick with, like, people like us, where we're going to constantly go back to that and say, is Galadriel ever going to be able to make amends for this kind of stuff, where she's essentially saying, like, oh, whatever you've done in the past doesn't matter, to Sauron, who has killed her brother, and how will that affect her now that, like, the fact that she gave up her dagger so easily right after the fact. That's why I wanted her dagger to be given up beforehand, because it would be, I'm giving up my anger towards Sauron. I understand now that we've got to move forward. And then when she finds out that he's Sauron, her dagger's already gone. But now she's just mad that he's like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It kind of is a weird way of. So she pushes Sauron away. And she's like, I don't want to join you, and then then I will give up my dagger. It didn't feel. It felt almost dreamlike to go from finding out he's Sauron to talking to Celebrimbor and saying don't treat with him to giving up our dagger. Like it all happened so fast, and I'm like, he's Sauron, go get him. He's right down the road. Like he has what, one horse? Like
Yeah, she could have said set the guards out after him.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
yeah, and it doesn't matter if maybe they don't find him. Maybe he shapeshifts. Like there's tons of ways he gets away, right? But the fact that they didn't even bother is what's holding me back and saying like, what is going on here? Why is everyone acting so weird? It's just. And then we're gonna see what happens in Numenor, because again, there's a weird line there, or not a line. The Queen Regent is asking, "What's wrong? Like, what are you seeing?" And Elendil doesn't say anything, but she asks multiple times, and
he still doesn't answer.
it becomes awkward. Like I'm watching this, going like, "This is awkward, dude. Just tell her what you see."
Yeah.
They shouldn't have had her say that. They shouldn't have had her ask. Just have them both stand there and then show us the flags. Don't have any dialogue. But her just constantly asking what's happening. Why include that in that kind of moment if you're not even gonna tell the character what's happening? It's just weird stuff like that where it's just, I don't know if they thought about what it would look like until they were done shooting it, and then maybe it was like too late. But they're gonna have a lot of time for season 2.
Yeah, well, we have to worry about it's gonna look very different versus in England versus
Yeah.
New Zealand.
Now, I'm trying to think what places we need to look the same. In terms of exterior shots, we really don't need much. Maybe the exterior of the town. But other than that, like, you've got all, like, the dwarves are all interior. The elves mostly interior, and even the exterior ones, I think they're sets. I think, like, the tree area is a set, I believe. As well as, like, that forest that has the carvings of like, famous dead elves. And you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, I think those are both sets. And then Numenor is the only one that I'm questioning. Like, a lot of it does seem like a set, but some of it could be just on location somewhere that looks old-fashioned. I don't know. My hope is they can just rebuild a lot of those sets. But we will see if there's any big change. As long as we don't go with the Harfoots, we should be okay. The Harfoots were really the only ones that were outside.
Yeah.
And then obviously the battle was outside, but
I guess the Southland's already gone.
Yeah.
So that's okay.
like with the Southlands being changed, you can literally film it wherever as long as it looks kind of volcanic-y. And that might not even be in England. I don't know if all of it's going to be in England. They might just shoot that in Iceland or something like that. Like, you can find stuff that looks like that. So I think we'll be okay for looks. Now, I do wonder, are we going to get the same directors? Like, we had a group of directors for this season. I wonder if they're going to stay on. Similar to Game of Thrones, but I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
I think that about wraps this one up. So yeah, let us know what you guys thought down below. I'm very curious to see what people thought of this season finale. Did you guys enjoy the reveal of Sauron? That was one that I think a lot of people saw coming, but I guess now it's nice to know that you're right. Yeah, let us know down below. Remember, while you're down there, to like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.